Picture this. It's 1985, and you've just stepped into New York City's famous Regine's. The chandelier glimmers like 1,000 diamonds, lighting up an endless buffet of beluga caviar, truffle-studded foie gras, and a chocolate fountain that seems to defy gravity. The maitre d', dressed in an Armani tux, pours you a flute of Dom Perignon as you slide into a velvet booth surrounded by celebrities and Wall Street tycoons. This wasn't just a night out, it was a statement, a showcase of opulence that only the 1980s could produce. Welcome to the 1980s, a decade of big hair, bigger egos, and economic boom that fueled a culture of unapologetic excess. The global economy was booming, and with it came a newfound appreciation, or perhaps obsession, with indulgence and luxury. Consumerism wasn't just alive and well, it was thriving, and people wanted to spend big, live loud, and dine like royalty. It was a time when the phrase "too much" didn't exist, especially when it came to food and drink. This was the era that birthed extravagant dining experiences, where restaurants became playgrounds for the rich and famous, and the dining scene transformed into a glittering stage of spectacle and innovation. So, how did this wild wave of excess start crashing onto the dining scene? It began with the rise of themed restaurants that felt more like a night at the theater than a simple meal. Establishments like Windows on the World, perched atop the World Trade Center, offered views as breathtaking as their 7-course feasts, while diners at Maxim's in Paris were treated like characters in a modern fairy tale. High-end restaurants pulled out all the stops: live music, theatrical lighting, and servers who were trained to put on a show. This era also saw the birth of the celebrity chef, culinary geniuses like Wolfgang Puck and Alice Waters, who became household names and transformed food into high art. Food was no longer just about taste. It was a spectacle meant to wow, dazzle, and yes, sometimes shock. Menus became more extravagant, with ingredients sourced from far-off lands. You'd find lobster thermidor alongside flambéed bananas Foster, presented tableside for that extra bit of drama. Everything had to be bold, loud, and Instagram-worthy, even though Instagram wouldn't exist for a few decades. In these temples of extravagance, dishes weren't just cooked, they were orchestrated, each one a masterpiece of culinary flair. Restaurants began to court the upper echelons of society, knowing that if celebrities or moguls were spotted dining, it would send a ripple of excitement through the press and, consequently, the public. The rise of extravagant dining in the 1980s also saw the advent of the power lunch, a phenomenon that transformed midday meals into high-stakes gatherings where fortunes and deals were made over plates of gourmet cuisine. Restaurants like the Four Seasons in New York City became hotspots for Wall Street titans, politicians, and celebrities, serving dishes like Dover sole and velvety vichyssoise in an environment that oozed sophistication. Meanwhile, chefs began experimenting with fusion cuisine, blending international flavors to create dishes that felt both novel and luxurious. California cuisine, championed by chefs like Alice Waters, emphasized fresh, local ingredients while still delivering the decadence people crave. It was an era of culinary ambition where restaurants competed to outdo each other, turning meals into theatrical showcases of flavor and flair. Hey there, fellow foodies! Did you know that 96.8% of our viewers are not subscribed? If you've enjoyed this journey into the world of global luxury dining, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join our Worldeats community and never miss out on our culinary adventures. We've got a lot more delicious content coming your way, exploring luxury dining across the globe. So, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and let's continue this food journey together. Now, let's get back to the video. The pinnacle of this culinary extravaganza might just be captured by one name: Le Cirque. Originally opened in New York City's Mayfair Hotel in 1974, Le Cirque became the place to see and be seen throughout the 1980s. Run by charismatic Cirio Macchioni, the restaurant attracted A-list celebrities like Frank Sinatra, Nancy Reagan, and Andy Warhol. Diners were treated to a level of service that bordered on royal, with dishes like Le Cirque Spaghetti Primavera, a seemingly simple yet opulent dish that became an instant sensation. The restaurant was famous for its crystal-clad dining room, exquisite cuisine, and the buzz of wealth that seemed to float in the air. If you managed to snag a reservation at Le Cirque, you were not just having dinner. You were living a dream, bathed in elegance and sprinkled with gold dust. The public was enamored. The media couldn't get enough. Le Cirque wasn't just a restaurant. It was a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Nestled within the opulent Mayfair Hotel, its crystal chandeliers cast sparkling reflections on the polished silverware and elegant glassware that adorned every table. Guests entered a world of glamour where Sirio Macchione, the charming and shrewd restaurateur, held court. He knew every guest by name and famously made sure everyone felt like royalty. The allure of Le Cirque lay not only in its exquisite dishes, but also in its air of exclusivity and celebrity. Signature creations like paupier of black bass with Barolo sauce were presented with theatrical flair, embodying the excess of the decade. The buzz surrounding the restaurant was electric, and getting a reservation was nearly impossible, unless you were someone of great importance. Media outlets breathlessly covered every event there, and even the smallest whisper about Le Cirque sent shockwaves throughout the dining world. But, as with all things excessive, the 1980s dining scene couldn't stay on that lofty high forever. The influence of these extravagant meals did not vanish, though. Instead, they evolved, giving rise to a new age of foodies in the 1990s and beyond. Many of the trends we see today, open kitchens, tasting menus, and even the concept of celebrity chefs, can be traced back to the innovations of this era. Restaurants became more about the experience, a trend that persists in everything, from modern Michelin-starred establishments to immersive dining events. Even our obsession with food presentation owes a nod to the 1980s, when plating became a visual art form. But alongside the showmanship, a new wave of dining culture began to emphasize sustainability, farm-to-table practices, and authenticity, shifting from ostentation to a more refined appreciation for quality. The over-the-top dining experiences of the 1980s left an indelible mark on the restaurant industry, setting the stage for the more refined yet equally impactful trends of the following decades. As the 1990s approached, a backlash against excess began to emerge, with a growing emphasis on sustainability, authenticity, and back-to-basics approach. The farm-to-table movement gained momentum, popularized by chefs like Alice Waters, who had already begun laying the groundwork in previous years. Yet, the spirit of the 1980s lingered, especially in the way restaurants started to prioritize the overall dining experience, not just the food. Fine dining establishments took notes from the theatricality of the 1980s, incorporating dramatic presentations and immersive atmospheres in more subtle ways. Meanwhile, tasting menus, which allowed chefs to curate multi-course culinary journeys, became a staple in high-end dining, influenced by the idea that a meal could and should be a memorable artistic event. Today, echoes of the 1980s dining extravagance still resonate. We see them in the luxurious tasting menus of today's top restaurants, in food festivals that feel like red carpet events, and in the way we idolize chefs as much as movie stars. That era paved the way for a culture that views dining as an experience, one that transcends just eating to become a moment worth remembering. The 1980s dared to dream big, and while some elements faded, the spirit of culinary innovation lives on. It's a legacy of abundance, artistry, and a reminder that dining, at its best, is as much about the heart as it is about the plate. If you've got any wild dining memories from the 1980s, or maybe just some favorite dishes from that era, drop them in the comments below. And hey, if you're hungry for more juicy stories about food history, make sure to check out this video now. We've got plenty of tasty tales just waiting for you.